Okay, if you go ahead and state your full name and spell it, and then tell me where you work and your title.
I'm Gloria Sly, Gloria, S as in snake, L as in lion, Y as in yes. I work for Cherokee Nation Education Services, and I'm an education liaison.
Okay.
My name is Norma Bixby, Normabixby, and I am the director of the Northern Cheyenne Tribal Education Department.
Great. And the question I have for both of you is, could you characterize what it is that your agency does, your TEA, and what are the major issues that you deal with, and what is your vision for the future? So you got really three questions each. You know, characterize your TEA, what are the big issues, and what are your visions for the future as your as representatives of your tribe's education systems?
My Cherokee Nation's education department is a very large bureaucracy because we're tied into the full tribe, and since our budget is like probably 56 million a year, we like I say, very bureaucratic, very the forms and stuff. I thought BIE was bad, but we can surpass them in paperwork and all of that processes. So we do that. We look at the work that we're doing now is tying into public schools because that's where our children are, and that's where a lot of our education dollars are enabling those schools to educate our children. And one of our initiatives at the moment is working with teachers and giving them professional development workshops and activities on Common Core so that they can go into the classrooms and work with our children. And the teachers don't have to be Cherokee, but the children, they have to be working in a school that has Cherokee children in it. And so we work very close with the administrators to make sure that those teachers get the skills that they perceive that their teachers need. So we have that relationship and are building that relationship in our jurisdictional area to work with those schools closely. And we have our JOM program that's in 73 of those schools. We have our early Head Start that's in 40 some of those. I'm not sure how many, but they contract with the public school for the classroom, and sometimes they help pay for the teacher in that Head Start classroom. So we're very much wanting to be partners with the educational institutions within our jurisdictional service area, because we also have contracts with 2 higher education institutions in our area, so to provide specific services. No, 3 now. I take that back. We have a nursing program that we contract for spaces for, but with 2 other 4-year universities, we have some housing and stuff that we contract with them for.
Earlier you had said you have over 400 employees in your tribal education system, and you have, as far as capacity, you're one of the large capacity tribes.
Yes, we are. We are one of the large capacity tribes because of our numbers, because of the success that we've had with our gaming, and the diversification of that gaming has allowed us to diversify, and that money, that income from that comes into our programs, our social programs, and education gets a quarter, 1/4 of all that money, so that we can develop things and help with education as we perceive it in our communities, in our schools, and for all of our citizenry. So we look at that. And that's, so we're very, very fortunate in that sense. We're very fortunate. We realize that we don't have the issues that small tribes do, but smaller tribes don't have the issues we do either with the bureaucracy. They can go to their chief and get money right then if somebody needs it. We have all kinds of paperwork. So.
Is that true, Norma? Could you just go to your
No.
chief and get some money?
They never give me any money. In fact, they take my money.
Why don't you go ahead and characterize your TEA?
Well, our tribal education department, we've been, our tribe contracted higher education, used to be adult vocational training, and Johnson O'Malley way back in 1975, 76, I believe. And so basically, the tribal ed department at one time was the career development program. And so when I became the director, I changed to the tribal education department because I knew that we needed to improve our education in all of our school systems, and also that we needed to get through kids in college. And when I took over, we didn't have one graduate. We didn't have any kid that finished school. And so basically, that's the way the program still runs today. We still administer higher education, and now it's job placement and training, and it's Johnson O'Malley. And I have well, actually now, I thank God, I have 5 staff members. I've been doing 3 jobs there for a while now. And so, because it's really difficult to find qualified people to take those positions. And so some of my other work that I do with the schools and with the state, I kind of had to put on the back burner because I had to keep my program going, because we do have to get keep those kids in school, and we do have to keep them in training, and we still have to administer the Johnson O'Malley program. And so, but I still work with the schools as far as facilitating, getting out information, and making sure that they're aware of, educational issues that are coming up, or educational programs or scholarships. I do that. That's easy to do through a computer and through mailing. So basically, that's about the extent of my program right now. I could do much more and have done much more, but given the limited number of people I have working with me, it's just I have to put everything on hold. But I really feel like I said, if I only had at least 2 more people, we could get out in the community. We could do a better job of, we have a very high dropout rate on all of our schools, and I could get maybe decrease that drop rate, get a person out in the community, go talk to people, get community meetings together, but without funding, without people, that's almost impossible. I have great ideas, but no money to do what I really want them to do. So basically our program is just administering those scholarships. We do very well with what we do. We have anywhere from an 89 to a 100% retention rate in our scholarship programs, in our Johnson O'Malley program, our job training program. We had over 75% of our kids that completed maintained a 3.0 and a 4.0 above, and our Johnson O'Malley program is doing wonderful with meeting with parents and getting them involved in the school systems. And so we do very well with what the programs we do administer, by making educational impact in the community.
In terms of capacity, you would not classify your TEA, the same as Cherokee. Where would you place yourself as far as capacity, your TEA?
The bottom of the barrel? No.
Well, obviously, you have a great willingness. You have a
Yes.
great sovereign capacity.
Oh,
But what
yes.
are you saying? It
Yes.
sounds like you're saying you lack human resource capacity.
That's actually it. Our tribe does not support our program at all. They don't. They take our indirect costs and use it, but we don't get any funding from the tribe. Any educational issue that comes through the tribe, we deal with. They might get some information or want maybe to develop a white paper to take to DC, but that's the extent of it. They don't really provide any kind of support at all for our program, so we're just kind of an afterthought. Even though our tribal council and our tribe says education is important, but there's so many other needs, and I think because we're doing so well, and we're getting kids in school, and we're graduating students, that they don't think that they need to provide any support for us at all.
And here we have two leaders in tribal education who have a great personal capacity for their craft. I imagine you both have great vision for the future.
Definitely.
But here we're coming from two different capacities, two different locations. And how might let's hear about your visions. What do you see off in the future? What are your hopes, dreams for your tribal education systems?
Well, my dream is that I would get a little larger staff, for one thing, and have the money to implement a reservation-wide educational database. We used to have one at one time. Our Chief Dawn Life College started a database, but I don't know why they quit funding it. And it just kind of stopped right there. And I've just kept the data for the higher ed and the job training going every year, but it doesn't we don't do anything with it. And so I see looking at that database as really giving a true picture of who's out there and who we might bring back to work for the tribe. Like I say, I couldn't find any qualified people for a job training position, a counselor position, or even a secretary position. And we have a college right there on our reservation, but finding quality people to work was, that just didn't happen. And I would like to have this database where we could say if the tribe needed somebody, we could, look through our database and find someone that might fit that need. I would like to have someone to do the community liaison work, because our court system doesn't address the dropout or the absentee rate of our kids. They don't have they have laws, but they don't implement them. And so we have this high absenteeism rate where nobody's doing anything about it. Our school systems have homeschool coordinators, but there is no clout for them to get the kids back in school. So I see that as a real important role of a tribal ed department, is to make sure that we reduce that dropout rate and we reduce our absenteeism rate. If we had someone that would really be able to work in the community and work with the families, provide them resources if they need resources, find out what the problem is, and give them the resources that they need to help keep their kids in school. The other vision I have is that I would like to have people, maybe an education specialist on staff, who could actually work with the schools. Well, in Montana we have the law where Indian education for all is the law. And so every school has to have Indian education within the school systems, all the school systems, including the ones on the reservation. What I would like to do is have someone on staff who could show them how to implement the culture and the language within the school system. That seems to be the problem, is that they don't seem to know how to do that. And you can make all the suggestions you want, but they're schools and they're independent and they do what they want to. I do have some control over Northern Cheyenne, so we're working at making those changes at Northern Cheyenne, because I'm on the ad hoc board of directors. So that's one of my goals, to make sure that we implement Indian education for all, and we implement the core standards, and we implement the language back into that school system. But the other ones I can just make recommendations to. And if you can't say you're going to do something if you don't have the authority to do something and you don't have the money to do something. that's not good. It doesn't look very good. It wouldn't look good on the tribe, and it would look good on our office. And so, so I would like to make sure, to have an education specialist who would do that and be able to implement in an education for our Northern Cheyenne curriculum within the core standards and within the curriculum in the school systems. The other thing I would like to do that my vision is, and this is something I'm going to work on, I'm charged up now, I'm ready to go again, is we unfortunately had a tribal president who rescinded all the tribal education codes, all of the education resolutions that we had on file. And he had a very good vision, but he didn't do it right, and it was to develop a board of regents. And this would include all the educators, and the tribe would control all of education. Well, what he did was he got everybody mad. Rather than bringing him in, talking how can we implement this, what would be a good way to do this. And Chief Dullknife, the tribal control colleges, and it cannot have tribal control interference. Otherwise, they lose their accreditation, and they almost did that once before. So they're really careful about doing that. And so they rallied the kids, they rallied the parents, and it fell apart. And with it went all of our codes, all of our resolutions, everything went with what he did. And so what I would like to do is, if I had the capacity, rather than just being a program, tribal education department, I would like to bring the tribe, bring that same concept back, but do it in a way where it would be respectful, which it was before. Very respectful of all the schools and everybody working together. This is how we got our brand new high school, is because I had brought in an education commission made up of all the schools, made up of all the social service, the tribal courts, any program that impacted children was on the commission. And we worked together to build a new high school on Northern Cheyenne, and we were able to do that. And but when this president came in, he wiped that all out. And it's been very difficult to get that back with the tribal presidents we have, and they think I should just be running programs and not implementing and putting the educational system back under the tribe. And so I think we have a tribal president. If he stays in office, it's questionable right now, but if he stays in office, through him, I think I can rebuild the education commission. We have a circle of schools right now, but they don't include the tribe, and I think that's wrong. And so if we can get the resolutions, get everything back in place as it was before, then I think we can take some control over our education. But right now, it's just, I have to ask permission to do this and permission to do that, and I think we should have more control than we do right now. So that's my big vision, and I feel like now that I'm staffed up and ready to go, I could spend some time in getting things reorganized and moving forward. But of course, funding is always an issue.
Well, it's a great vision. I wish you all the best. Anything I can do to help out, just let me know.
Well, I know. I really appreciated you coming to. I mean, we had the education summit.
Yeah, that was a great.
I'll tell you, that
opportunity.
was the biggest. I mean, that's what every tribe should do every year, is to have an education summit.
Yeah.
Salish Kootenai does that every year, and it's just wonderful. They bring in all their teachers and they do professional development. That's what I would like to do, is continue that education summit.
Yep.
That president, I mean, that was something. That was a miracle that even happened, because he was not. He had his agenda, but he didn't work with people to see how we could work together to accomplish something, So that was a miracle. That.
Well, let's hope for another miracle.
Yeah, really. And trying to get it done again was just not going to happen.
Gloria,
We just need to make some changes.
Gloria, what is your vision for your tribal education agency in the future and your dreams?
Okay. I think that we need to revert back to and look at our history, because at the turn of the 19th century, before Oklahoma statehood, we had over 100 day schools, and we had complete control of our education system within those schools. Matter of fact, we charged non-Cherokees tuition to come in and attend our schools. But at that time, we had over 90% literacy rate. Our literacy rate is not so high. So what my vision is, and I've been working for it for over 30, 40 years now, is that every Cherokee child should have the opportunity to pursue and to fulfill their dreams, and educationally, professionally, to be a self-fulfilling adult. And in order to do that, we need to have things in place. But that's what I want our educational system to facilitate.
Yeah, you guys have a tremendous mark in the history of Indian education, having some of the first tribally controlled schools that offered not just Cherokee history and culture, but looking at non-Cherokee history and culture. You guys were doing a better job than the United States schools, and they shut you down.
Mm-hmm, definitely.
And even Oklahoma's test scores are a lot higher. Their Indian test scores are a lot higher than the other tribes, aren't they? I mean, they're doing really well. I think too, the poverty level isn't as high as it is, like for the our northern tribes. Our poverty rates are pretty low, are pretty high, and so that impacts the academic level of the kids. And I would like to erase that concept that a kid can be educated even though they're poor, and that there's a way to do it, and that's what we need to figure out, how we can educate, give these kids the education, build those dreams and that future for them even though they're poor, and get rid of that whole concept about poverty, and that brings down the academic level. And I don't think that should be the case. Mm-hmm. And I think we as tribes can do that if they just let us, give us the opportunity to do it.
Yeah, and I agree, poverty is a deal, because we do have one in our area. We have the highest poverty rates in Oklahoma, and in one of our adjoining counties, we have the highest poverty. These children in those isolated Cherokee communities, they're not real isolated now as they were 10 years ago before all the technology came in, but we do have high populations of poverty. And so the tribe really works to, and that's another thing, we're basing our economic development largely on education, and we're wanting to bring in industries that will utilize educational kinds of degrees as opposed to labor from individuals, and so that's what we're pursuing, the higher level jobs of the jobs of technology. Google's in our area, they have a plant, so we're trying to team up with them. We want to do things in our, we have summer camps, and so we want to develop a coding camp and class so that children begin coding at 10 years old, and we begin training them to code. Younger, if we can teach them. We don't always have teachers who can reach those younger students with those kinds of things, but we do want to do that because we already do the STEM. We do the robotics at 2nd and 3rd grade. We enable our schools to do that because Oklahoma, the state, had like a Oklahoma Scholars Program, and they had to have certain kinds of classwork to qualify. Well, we went out and surveyed the schools in our 14 county areas, and there was only 3 or 4 schools that offered the complete classwork that was needed for those children to be able to compete for those scholarships. So none of the children, Cherokees nor whites, could ever compete for those because the schools didn't have the capacity to have the classes that they wanted. So we began working with that, and that's part of the research that we do. What do schools do? What do our children do? What can we accomplish? And what can we facilitate? We don't always put money into it. Sometimes it's time and human resources, because we're also pushing we don't have a tribal college, but we have a regional university. And the fact that, our students sometimes out there are low achieving. They don't always make AYP. Those schools don't. So what we're doing is pushing that school, because it is known for its teacher training. And I'm going, hey, look, you trained the majority of these teachers out in these public schools in our area. And I said, you have this great reputation for teacher training. And I said, our schools are hitting the bottom of the list. What does that say about your product? And so what does it say? And we've got to challenge them to make a better product out there, because they're not benefiting. I mean, they're keeping their salaries at the university, but that's not enabling our students. And I mean all children, they're in those public schools in northeastern Oklahoma, because we have those partial 14 counties, So we're looking at that area as a whole and the population as a whole, and not separating out so much the Cherokee from the non-Cherokee, although in certain areas we do. I mean, with our money, we fund only the Cherokee ones, but we look at that development as it impacts that whole area. That's why we were just really happy to brag that we made over $1 billion impact on the economy of Oklahoma. So.
That's so true that, like in the state of Montana, when I was in the state legislature, they thought, the tribes were there just for a handout. And I talked to Governor Schweitzer, and I says, Governor, I says, we're not, Indian tribes aren't here for a handout. I said, we impact the whole economy of the state of Montana. We don't spend our money on our reservations. We spend it on the outlying community. And so what he did is he did a study on it, and it showed each tribe how much money they contributed to the state of Montana. Mm-hmm. And the legislature, they couldn't believe that we contributed that much money. Yeah. Or even our little scholarship program, impacts our university system. All the tribes with their scholarship programs impacted the higher education institutions quite a bit, and they didn't realize how much money we put into the system. And how soon the states forget that there would be no state's economy were it not for tribal land and resources. That's true. And it's our public school systems too, with the impact aid money they receive because of our children. Mm-hmm. Those teachers don't know how much money they get for their salaries because of the impact aid money that comes into the school system. The administration doesn't tell them. They think that we're just there for another handout or something, and they don't provide the quality education that we need for our Indian kids. But if they knew that they were paying for their salaries, I bet they would.
I don't think so.
You don't think so?
No.
Oh,
for one thing, I think that Indian history, tribal history, has to be included in the textbooks. Oklahoma history begins at statehood. Mm-hmm. It says nothing about what we as tribal nations contributed to forming statehood. It says nothing about dual citizenship, how we became citizens in 1934, 24, and how, we're second. I'm a second generation, citizen of, and so it's like, oh, and they do not comprehend tribal sovereignty or dual citizenship, and I think that education needs to happen in the public schools, because none of our teachers know about it. They can't teach it if they don't know about it, and we have 39 federally recognized tribes, and so I think, oh my gosh. So when I talk about tribes, and we had our annual meeting, Tana did a couple of weeks ago, they said, well, you present what you're doing. I went, no, let's bring in a smaller tribe. More tribes are smaller than they are larger. you know, and they can talk to each other about what they do and what they can accomplish and what they have accomplished, you know. And we'll sit there and look at, I mean, they do wonderful things. They do things, some things much better than we do, you know, and so I always like to learn and borrow ideas and things like that to strengthen our education department. And so I really listen when they talk. But I do want to help protect them too, because the people used to say to me, "Oh, you 5 tribes don't need us," you know. And I'm going, yes, we do, and we cannot allow anything to happen to you. Because if they can slap you around, slap you down, then they're going to keep coming up the chain until they get to us. And the Brown case, you know, baby Veronica, that case showed you, you know, that we can't stand alone. We cannot. And because that case impacted every tribe across the nation. And so we've got to protect one another.
That's
Well,
true. We've got to support one another. That's
Yeah.
for sure.
I have no doubt what you just said is absolutely correct.
That's
Yeah.
true.
If it happens to one tribe, it could happen to all.
Yeah, That's right. Especially when it gets into the Supreme Court, then it impacts everybody. I mean, any little decision that happens, it's
And our
has
sovereignty.
has
Yeah,
and our
our so-
sovereignty. That's
yeah.
right.
Well,
That's correct.
I sure thank you. You
Mhm.
know, this is going to help people understand tribal education systems better. And I like using the word systems
Right.
because, yeah, you guys
We
are
are. We're a
TEDs,
system.
you know, you're
We're TEDs.
TEAs, but you're really tribal education systems.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. One thing we're really fortunate to have is in an education for all in Montana.